Vayora anilam amritam, atedam basmantam shariram. Om kratos smara kritam smara, kratos smara kritam smara. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you're the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I've done for you. Okay, so let us go through paragraph number 1. So here in paragraph number 1, Srila Prabhupada explains that the material body, our material bodies, are foreign dresses. Yes. Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verse 20, which is a very definitive verse about the nature of the soul and its relationship with the material body. Najayate mriyate vakada chinnayam bhutvabhavatavana bhuya ajo nityashashvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul there's neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So in other words, the soul, the living entity, the conscious, eternal conscious living being who's situated currently within the material body, the soul is completely different from the body, and the body is really just like clothing. We read last night, or a couple of nights ago, I think, Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verse 22, in which Lord Krishna talks about that just as we change our clothes every day, or, well, as devotees, hopefully, maybe a couple of times a day, actually, to keep clean. So as we change our clothes to fresh clothes, the soul similarly changes material bodies to a fresh new material body. You may remember in Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna was protesting about killing Bhishma, Drona, who were some of the elders on the side of the Kurus, that it's not nice to kill them. But Lord Krishna was saying that you'll be doing them a favor, because now they've got these old bodies and it's difficult. The body is just not as strong and agile as it was many years ago. So now you can get a new body. You can get a new body and be strong and fresh and athletic like this. So this is the thing here in this first paragraph, how the material body is an imposition on the eternal conscious person. Yes. So Prabhupada goes on to say in the first paragraph, our identity is never impersonal or formless. Rather, the body is formless. It has this meaningless shape and it's changing shape as time goes on. Yes, so like that. It's a really foreign object. So this mantra verifies the fact that the living entity exists after the annihilation of the material body. So now we go on to mantra 2. Paragraph 2, excuse me. And here in paragraph 2, Srila Prabhupada explains how the material nature works wonderfully. Material nature works, you could say, very cleverly, giving us bodies according to our different desires, material desires. And the animals, they also get bodies according to their desires. But Prabhupada explains, we humans are not meant to live like meat-eating animals. Yeah. Even the lowest type of human bodies, they're built to be vegetarian, Srila Prabhupada explains. Even the lowest type of human bodies. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the paragraph, human teeth are so made that they can chew and cut fruit and vegetables. Although there are 2 canine teeth, so that primitive humans can eat flesh if they so desire, if they really have to, if they so desire. So now we go on to paragraph 3. It's a pretty substantial paragraph. And again, Prabhupada makes the point, as in the first paragraph, that the material bodies that all living entities have, humans, animals, and just all the living entities have, that they are foreign to us. They're foreign to us. And they change as our desires change. Yes. So then Srila Prabhupada goes through, it's quite an interesting little explanation or statement. Prabhupada says, when the world was full of water, the living entity took an aquatic form. Then he passed to vegetable form. I guess when there was less water, it wasn't just full of water. So then he came to a vegetable form, from vegetable life to worm life, from worm life to bird life, from bird life to animal life, and from animal life to the human form. It's a very interesting description. Let's just say it's a very interesting description. Depicting like a possible scenario of development of body and situation for the conditioned soul, lifetime after lifetime. So, of course, the highest developed form is the human form. And particularly the highest level of human is human who has a full sense of spiritual knowledge. Those who don't have a developed sense of real spirituality, the eternal nature of the soul, how it's different from the body, and then our relationship with the Supreme Lord. So that's not the highest level of human. That's a lower level of human. They're all different levels of human, but the highest level of human is human who's in Krishna consciousness, actually, or at least with a very developed sense of spirituality. And Prabhupada makes the point that the highest development of that spiritual consciousness is described in this mantra. It's described in this mantra. So Prabhupada says, one should give up the material body, which will be turned to ashes, and allow the air of life to merge into the eternal reservoir of air. And then we should go back to Godhead. Yes. Prabhupada explains how our activities within these bodies are performed through the movements of different types of air within the body. This is known as prana vayu. So, and Prabhupada explains that the yogis generally try to control the airs, the prana vayu, and to raise the soul from one air to another, because there's a number of airs at different levels in the body. And finally, to the highest level, the Brahmarandram, at the very top of the head, where the highest level of air is situated. And then at least the yogis who try to control the airs like this and lift the soul up to that topmost level, then the idea is that the yogis can transfer themselves to a higher planet. Yes, any planet. But we already studied, at some length, just a few days ago, we studied how, repeatedly from different perspectives, how transferring to even higher material planets, that's not the right idea. It's not the perfection. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the paragraph, but the highest perfection of such changes occurs only when the living entity is able to give up the material body altogether, as suggested in this mantra, and enter into the spiritual atmosphere, where he can develop a completely different type of body, a spiritual body, which never has to meet death or change. Yes, okay. So now on to paragraph 4. Here in this material world, material nature forces the living entity to change body on the basis of our material desires. Yes, you don't really get a choice. You already chose by choosing to desire to enjoy material life. Yeah. So Prabhupada explains the different species represent different desires, from the germs up to Lord Brahma and other demigods. Yes, they're manifestations of different desires. And an intelligent person will see oneness on the spiritual platform. Yes, even though they're different bodies, still the intelligent person will see there's one type of eternal spirit soul. Satchitananda, eternal transcendental person, servant of Krishna, in every body, no matter how different the bodies are. Yes. So, well, again, the human body is the highest. And if we really work at it in the human body, then we can come to know the Lord, surrender to him, go back to Godhead. Prabhupada refers to Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, verse 19. Another famous verse, let me just read it. Bahunam janmanam ante, gyanavan mam prapadyate, vasudeva sarvamiti, samahatma sudurlabhaha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So, but the problem is, and Prabhupada concludes the paragraph basically, if you don't come to this point of understanding that we're eternal parts and parcels of the whole, ultimately of Krishna, then you go back to material life. Prabhupada concludes the paragraph by saying, indeed, one must fall down, even if he has become one with the Brahma Jyoti. Yes. So on we go now to paragraph 5. So, Prabhupada says, as we have learned from previous mantras, the Brahma Jyoti coming from the body of the Lord is full of spirit souls, spiritual sparks, which have the full sense of existence. That's all, the full sense of existence. Sometimes they want to enjoy their senses, and so they're placed in the material world in material bodies to become false lords under the dictation of the senses. That's, Prabhupada explains, that is the disease of the living, the conditioned soul, that we want to lord it over the material energy, and in this way enjoy. But we end up just transmigrating and suffering a lot, really suffering a lot. So becoming one with the Brahma Jyoti, that's not actually the goal. Srila Prabhupada concludes the paragraph. Becoming one with the Brahma Jyoti does not represent mature knowledge. Only by surrendering unto the Lord completely and developing one's sense of spiritual service does one reach the highest perfectional stage. So on now to mantra 6. So what's being described here in mantra 17, this is all happening at the time of death. The person, the speaker, is at that particular point. And, of course, it's a very serious time. One has to be just focused as much as possible. And so the person here, the jiva, is praying to the Lord to enter the kingdom of God. And he's saying he wants the Lord to remember what he's done, like what devotional service he's performed before the body is burnt up. Of course, there's no real need to remind the Lord, my Lord, in case you forgot, can I remind you what I've done? Not really. The Lord remembers our lives better than we remember them. But still, in a sense, there's no harm in appealing to the Lord sincerely from the heart. Please be merciful. We have to really be strongly desirous of getting mercy. It is the main factor in our lives, the mercy of the Lord. It's a more important factor than are we expert or not expert or something like that. The main thing is the mercy, because by the grace of the Lord, a blind man can see stars in the sky. A lame man can climb mountains. By mercy, by expertise, he can't do that. So, yes, he, the person speaking, he's fully conscious of what he's done in the past. And he knows that whatever he remembers at the time of death, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 6, which is quoted here. So he knows what he's done in the past. He knows what is the goal. And he knows that I have to remember the Lord. That will determine what my future position. So he's making his best effort to remember the Lord and to pray to the Lord for help. Yes, so Bhagavad Gita chapter 8 verse 6 is quoted here. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam chajat yante kalevaram tam tam evaiti konteya sadatad bhava bhavata. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. And Srila Prabhupada concludes the paragraph, thus the mind carries the living entity's propensities into the next life. All right, so on to paragraph 7. So it's interesting the description Srila Prabhupada gives here in this paragraph number 7, that unlike the animals who don't have developed minds, a human being who's dying can remember the activities of the life that he's just coming out of. Prabhupada says, like dreams at night, like dreams at night. And therefore, at least for the conditioned souls, their minds remain surcharged with material desires at the time of death. And Prabhupada says, consequently, he cannot enter into the spiritual kingdom with a spiritual body. So, but for the devotees, the situation is different, because the devotees develop a sense of love for Krishna through devotional service. So even at the time of death, even if a devotee doesn't remember his service to the Lord, Prabhupada says, the Lord does not forget him. That is our hope, or not hope, you could say. Yeah. That Krishna will remember us, and that despite the shortcomings, we tried. We tried to do something. So Srila Prabhupada concludes, paragraph number 7. This prayer is given to remind the Lord of the devotee's sacrifices. But even if there is no such reminder, the Lord does not forget the service rendered by his pure devotee. So now, what we'll do now, you know what we'll do now? we have a special question now based on this mantra 17. Let me just read the translation of mantra 17 again, just to remind us. It's an important mantra. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices. And because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. That's the mantra. The question is, well, the statement the question is based on is, it's from a letter written by Srila Prabhupada, January 21st, 1970. Make a note. Letter, January 21st, 1970, from Los Angeles, a letter to Jayapataka, who I guess was not a sannyasi yet. So there Srila Prabhupada said, at that time only, if you can some way or other remember the lotus feet of Govinda, Krishna, that will save you. At that time only means at that time of death. All right, so the question is that what, according to the statement here, what will happen if you remember the lotus feet of Krishna at the time of death? Is it, here's some choices, is it that you'll be saved? Is it that you'll achieve perfection? Is it that you'll be a devotee in your next life? Or is it that you'll not take birth again? Well, according to the letter, Srila Prabhupada says that you will be saved. So now we go on to paragraph number 8. And here, Srila Prabhupada explains that there's an intimate relationship, a very deep relationship between the Lord and the devotee. And this is described in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 30, verse 30 to 34. 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Yes. So Prabhupada gives a paraphrasing of it. I think I will read the actual verses, just the translations. So verse 30. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he's engaged in devotional service, he's to be considered saintly because he's properly situated in his determination. 31. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. 32. O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, and Sudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. And 33, how much more this is so of the righteous Brahmins, the devotees and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary, miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. And 35, engage your mind always, or is it 34? Yeah, 34. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. Excuse me. So, yeah, by the mercy of the Lord, through the devotee being situated in an intimate relationship with the Lord, the Lord saves the devotee despite the shortcomings of the devotee, and the devotee goes back to Godhead. I want to just mention one interesting little thing. That is that in the 18th chapter, Lord Krishna explains the very rigorous, demanding process of the jnanis. For many lives, they struggle to, and they may or may not realize the Lord. There's no guarantee. But for the devotee, in chapter 18, verse 56, Krishna says that although engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee, under my protection, reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, he says that Arjuna protests. And Arjuna says, this doesn't sound logical. The jnani takes many births and performs so much austerity for so long and with so much difficulty. How's it possible if the devotee does not have so much knowledge and is engaged in all different types of activities and isn't renounced? So how can the devotee achieve your eternal abode? What's the logic? And Krishna says, the logic is my mercy. My mercy has inconceivable power in it. Whew. That's amazing, isn't it? That's amazing. And while we're at it, I want to just tell you one other little story, actually. It's a Ram Leela story that just before Lord Ram and his army crossed to Lanka, they're still on the India side, then Vibhishan flew across to join Lord Ram. But because he was a devotee. But Lord Ram's associates didn't know that he's a devotee. They thought he's just a brother of Ravana, and so he must be bad. So they protested to Lord Ram that let's just kill him. But Lord Ram said, no, let's wait and just see what he wants. But some of the monkeys were saying, we must kill him, we must kill him. And eventually Vibhishan landed, and he came to Lord Ram, threw himself at the feet of Lord Ram and said, my Lord, from this day on, I am yours. And some monkeys, I believe Angada was one, but anyway, some monkeys were saying, don't listen to him. He's a demon. So let us kill him. And then Lord Ram became angry and he turned to them and said, even if Ravana himself came to me and surrendered to me like this, I would immediately accept him. Immediately accept him. This is the mercy of the Lord to someone, even someone who's got many faults, but has at heart some sincerity. So we move on to paragraph 9. And here Srila Prabhupada refers to or quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his explanation of these verses from Bhagavad Gita, and let us go through it. The idea, of course, this is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verses 30 to 34, where we just read through how even if someone does something really bad, as long as he's continuing in devotional service, he must be considered saintly. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives this explanation. Listen to this. It's very interesting. He says there in the purport that even though such a devotee may seem to be sudur acha, means very bad, a person of loose character, he says, one should try to understand the real purport of the word sudur acha. Okay, so then this is how he explains it. That as conditioned souls, we have two functions. We have material functions, maintain the body, and then we have spiritual functions for self-realization. For the maintenance of the body, there are different things that must go on. There's our social status, mental development, cleanliness, austerity, nourishment, and the struggle for existence. These are all part of the material side for the maintenance of the body. For the self-realization part, we must perform our duties as devotees. We must serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead and do so many activities for his pleasure. This is now the spiritual side. So the thing is, both these things have to go on. They both have to go on. We have to maintain ourselves materially, and we have to render devotional service. We can't just do one or the other. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says these two must be done along parallel lines. Yes. Keeping a balance between the two. And gradually, as the devotee advances, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the proportion of activities for the maintenance of the body decreases in proportion to the increase in devotional service. But, and this is the crucial point, but as long as the proportion of devotional service does not come to the right point, does not really start rising and becoming stronger, there is a chance of, he says, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, there's a chance for an occasional exhibition of worldliness, some mundane activity, something like that. But the good news is, the very good news, it should be noted that such worldliness cannot continue for long, because by the grace of the Lord, such imperfections will come to an end very shortly. And therefore Prabhupada concludes the purport, therefore the path of devotional service is the only right, concludes the paragraph. Therefore, the path of devotional service is the only right path. If one is on the right path, even an occasional occurrence of worldliness does not hamper one in the advancement of self-realization. So that's very encouraging. So now on to the 10th paragraph. And Prabhupada's preaching so strongly. The impersonalists, again, are denied the facilities of devotional service because they're attached to the Brahmajyoti and not to the Lord. And they can't penetrate the Brahmajyoti because they don't believe in Krishna. They don't accept Krishna. They're mainly into word jugglery, speculation, and they just waste their time. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada doesn't exactly quote, but he refers to Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, verse 5. Kleshadi katarastesham, avyakta sakta chetasam, avyakta hi gatir dukam, dehavadbhiravapyate. It's a very important verse. 12.5. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied, because we're used to being in bodies. For how many lifetimes we don't know, millions, billions, maybe. We've been in bodies. Now we're meant to accept that we're not embodied. It's a challenge. Old habits die hard. So, all right, paragraph 11. Paragraph 11. This is interesting. There's some interesting information here. So Prabhupada says, all the facilities suggested in this mantra can be easily obtained by constant contact with the personal feature of the Absolute Truth, means through devotional service. So there are 9 devotional activities, and of course they're well known. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Let's just read them in English. Hearing about the Lord, glorifying the Lord, remembering the Lord, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshipping the Lord, offering prayers to the Lord, serving the Lord, enjoying friendly association with the Lord, and surrendering everything to the Lord. So Prabhupada makes the point, as he does elsewhere also, that whether you do all of them, some of them, or just one of them, these activities help a devotee remain in touch with the Lord constantly. Yeah. And at the end of life, it'll be easier to remember him. And Prabhupada gives examples, the classic examples of people who achieved perfection by focusing on one of these 9 activities. So by hearing, who achieved perfection? Maharaj Parikshit. Glorifying, who achieved perfection? Shukadev Goswami, who spoke the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. Well, okay, Prabhupada, they've been put around. They've been put around. Anyway, that's sort of in a different order. But the way Prabhupada puts it, praying to the Lord, Akrura, remembering the Lord, Prahlad, worshipping the Lord, Prithu, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, Lakshmi, of course, rendering personal service, Hanuman, friendship, Arjuna, and surrendering everything, Maharaj Bali. Maharaj Bali. All right, so on we go to paragraph 12. And Prabhupada makes the point that Vedanta Sutra gives a summarized explanation of this mantra and so many mantras. But it's all explained very nicely in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the mature fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, this mantra is explained in the questions and answers between Shukadev and Parikshit at the beginning of Bhagavatam. So hearing and chanting of the science of God is the basic principle of devotional life. Then mantra, paragraph 13, Maharaj Parikshit's main question was Bhagavatam 1:19-24. Here, Prabhupada, we get the verse with the answer, but here's the verse with the question, 1:19-24. O trustworthy Brahmins, I now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances, and specifically of those who are just about to die. And the translation of the verse in which Shukadev answers, the question is, what's my duty? Now I'm going to die. What's everybody's duty, but particularly those who are just about to die? So Prabhupada quotes Bhagavatam 2:15. Everyone who desires to be free from all anxieties should always hear about, glorify, and remember the personality of Godhead, who's the supreme director of everything, the extinguisher of all difficulties, and the super soul of all living entities. Amazing. Okay, on to paragraph 14, second to last. So, yes, in this immediate previous paragraph we just read with these two verses, this is what everyone should do. But Prabhupada points out again that unfortunately so-called human society is engaged at night in sleeping and having sex, and during the daytime in earning as much money as possible, or shopping for family maintenance and forgetting enjoyable things. This is going on. And therefore people don't have time. They think they don't have time for discussing about the Lord, inquiring about the Lord. And Prabhupada says they've dismissed him like he's insignificant, no importance, forget about him. They've dismissed his existence in many ways. And Prabhupada says, primarily by declaring him to be impersonal. If he's not a person, why worry about him? Yes. So he's impersonal. He's got no sense perception, no emotions, no feelings, no thoughts, no desires. That's what they say. But Prabhupada points out that in all the Vedic literatures, Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, it's stated very clearly, the Lord is a sentient being, and he's supreme over all other living beings. And his glorious activities are identical with himself. Prabhupada concludes the paragraph. One should therefore not indulge in hearing and speaking of the rubbish activities of worldly politicians and so-called big men in society. But one should mold his life in such a way that he can engage in godly activities without wasting a second. Wow. Sri Isopanisad directs us towards such godly activities. That's just wonderful. Okay, so we come to paragraph 15, last paragraph. We'll be concluding here. So let's just read the paragraph. Unless one is accustomed to devotional practice, what will he remember at the time of death when the body is dislocated? And how can he pray to the Almighty Lord to remember his sacrifices if one hasn't made any sacrifices? Sacrifice means denying the interest of the senses. One has to learn this art by employing the senses in the service of the Lord during one's lifetime. One can utilize the results of such practice at the time of death. But if you don't do it, how are you going to remember the Lord? How are you going to be focused on the Lord? It's out of the question. So, there you go, devotees. That brings us to the end of mantra 17. Tomorrow we'll do mantra 18, the last mantra of Sri Isopanisad. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.